As President Bola Ahmed Tinubu marks 2 years in office, Nigerians remain deeply divided over his administration's performance. Now, recent polls reflect that this split, showing mixed approval ratings and widespread concerns about the cost of living, security, and economic management under his leadership. As the country grapples with these challenges, the debate continues on whether President Tinubu has fulfilled his promises or fallen short of expectations. And let's turn our attention to infrastructure development as we continue our assessment of President Bola Tinubu's achievements in 2 years, with the federal government saying that it has flagged off 65 new major projects and 4 legacy road projects within this period. In this report by Joshua Marai, News Central takes a look at what the administration has put in place with regards to infrastructure.
On May 29, 2023, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu assumed office, inheriting a nation burdened with thousands of unfinished infrastructure projects. 2 years after, the administration reports progress, but how much of it is felt on the ground?
According to Works Minister David Umahi, the Tinubu administration inherited 2,604 major road projects valued at 13 trillion naira, with 1 trillion naira owed to contractors for completed works. The backlog has affected national spending, increasing recurrent allocations for previously budgeted projects.
When we did rule of the thumb at that time and projected by the reason of removal of fuel subsidy and floating of the naira, the project then came to about 17 to 18 trillion. And today, projecting that is about 20 trillion. But by the ingenuity of Mr. President, fate directed that we should prioritize these inherited projects along the geopolitical zone and along the national economic corridors. And we came up with a total of 440 projects.
We should be worried because a lot of successive administrations have, embarked on what many have called white elephant projects. And that's why you embark on a project of, say, 10 trillion, whereas you have an envelope budgeting system that may likely, for the life of the administration of 4 years, you might not even be able to allocate 2 trillion to that project. That's why some people call it white elephant projects.
I think the existing procurement law needs to be reviewed. If I have my way to say, I will make further recommendations. It may sound drastic, but I think it could work. If you don't have the full fund to pay for a job, don't award it. I don't understand why Minister A will come and award his jobs he likes and pay the 15% and further payment. And when he leaves, the next man that comes, he says, okay, it was given by Minister A, I'm not touching it, I'm not paying it, they will abandon.
The administration has also flagged off 4 legacy road projects, namely the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, the Sokoto-Badagry Superhighway, the Calabar-Abuja Superhighway, and the Akwanga-Benue-Lokoja Superhighway. The 700-kilometer Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, which programmed in March 2024, has generated mixed reaction.
If I'm the president, will I engage in that service? Hell no, I will not. Not a possibility for me if I'm a president. First and foremost, you look at what we would generally call economic infrastructure, and you'll be able to determine the most one that is very pressing on Nigeria today. I would rather take port infrastructure as most pressing economic infrastructure in Nigeria, not that superhighway.
Many people have reviewed that the amount of resources on that road could perhaps help to complete some major federal roads that interconnect in a more strategic sense. And maybe when you're done with those, then you do this other big infrastructure that has maybe long-term economic value. But in the short to medium term, you deal with those infrastructural projects that make quick return to GDP growth and, of course, help with income and more dimensional poverty in rural communities.
In addition, 260 palliative projects worth 208 billion naira have been executed, ranging from road resurfacing to emergency bridge repairs. But concerns remain over the country's poor maintenance culture. A recent example is the closure of the Independence Bridge in Lagos, which caused major disruption. Meanwhile, senators from the southeast have kicked against the apparent exclusion of the region from key federal development projects. The latest being the irrigation project under the 2025 Appropriation Act. On May 22nd, Senator Kenneth Eze, representing Ebonyi Central, lamented that no funds were allocated to the southeast out of the 380 billion naira set aside in the 2025 budget.
Observe that although the intention of the project is national, the actual implementation plan are designed excluded Anambra Imo River Basin Development Authority.
However, opinions are mixed. While some welcome the interventions, others question the speed, scope, and sustainability of the projects. Concerns persist over road quality, congestions, and delayed timelines.
President Tinubu's second year shows strides in infrastructure, but beyond the numbers, the real challenge is completing this project and avoiding yet another pile of abandoned works. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
To discuss more on this, we're joined by a member of the organizing committee of #EndBadGovernance movement, Taiwo Hassan Soweto. Also, News Central's Joshua Marai is also on standby. Thank you so much for joining us on the news, Taiwo.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Now, Taiwo, it's been 2 years of this administration already. How would you score the president at midterm?
Well, I think that we have to be very realistic about the assessment. And for me, just as we made very clear at the press conference we had yesterday, our assessment really is that the last 2 years in this country has been one of monumental disaster from the point of view of the cost of living crisis and the collapsed income of the vast majority of the Nigerian people. Obviously, the government has carried out some infrastructural development, but the reality that we must not always ignore is the fact that infrastructural development is meant to push the economy forward. The human component of society still remains the most vital. In a situation where the government is building bridges and roads, while the people are meant to ply these roads and these bridges are dying of hunger, you cannot say that the government has performed in any way excellently. So our assessment is that the past 3 years has been one of monumental disaster for the Nigerian people, for the Nigerian worker, for the Nigerian youth, for the market women and for farmers. The crisis of hunger, remain, a very serious challenge for most families across the country today. The income of many workers can no more take them home, despite the fact that you have had an increase in minimum wage last year. 70,000 naira now is not something that can even feed a family of 2, let alone the average Nigerian family of 3 to 5. And that is why you have this situation, of starvation, of hardship across the country. Inflation has come down just a little bit, but in most cases, that's not even reflected in food prices. Food prices in most major markets across the country, you still see a whole lot of, increased, prices of food beyond the affordability of a majority of the Nigerian people. So that in the real sense of the word, the hunger and hardship that the regime started with on May 23 still remains the subsistence situation as of now.
Okay, now, Mr. Soweto, would you say that the government's promise to reinvest savings from subsidy removal into critical sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure has been fulfilled?
No, it has not. And we said that even right from 2023, because don't forget that as soon as subsidy was removed, the government also decided that student loan would now be the new educational policy of the government instead of increasing budgetary allocation to education. So what that means, therefore, is that at the end of the day, the money saved from subsidy removal is not being plowed into actually, making education more affordable, making education more accessible to, the average Nigerian person. And at the end of the day, when you now look at what has happened with the student loan, for instance, with the whole complaint about the fact that it's not even available for a lot of students who need it. And then for the students who apply for it, we have a lot of corruption going on whereby people don't get it. And yet, they are said to be indebted to the government. It tells you just how much, all of this money that the government claims to have saved, how much of it is actually not percolating back to the Nigerian people. So in the real sense of the word, that has not happened. When you look at the health sector, it's also the same situation. UCH Ibadan is a perfect example of how the government so-called investment in the health sector has not actually led to any real improvement. That hospital, has not had a over the past 1 year or thereabout. And that, is actually an indictment on the government. So I don't think that has happened. And that's why our assessment really is that this government has not done anything really good for the Nigerian people.
Now we have our correspondent, Joshua Marai, with us now. Joshua, thank you for joining us. Now, from your report, there has been a lot of talk about numbers and figures, but on the ground, would you say that these projects are actually impacting the everyday Nigerian?
Thank you for having me, Dashan, and good afternoon from Abuja. While it is agreeable that the government has initiated some kind of project, big project that Nigerians might say, the average Nigerian on the streets of Abuja, Lagos, or whatever, is not really impacted by this project. Why? Because the roads that you are trying to maintain, you are trying to build new roads, there are fewer cars on those highways. And what that particular means is that fewer cars means that less people are having the financial capability of bringing their cars out of their houses. That directs the entire thing into the issue of fuel subsidy. Over time, Nigerians have complained that this particular removal of subsidy has affected them in any way or the other. Even people who had cars already, they started abandoning their cars in their houses. Now, this points one direction. Maintenance. Now, people are not bringing those cars out. I think the government should find an alternative to cars and motor vehicles transporting Nigerians, because in other climes you are seeing an introduction of mass railway and the like. Now, I think that is the point that the government needs to focus their attention on. Mass railways and mass transportation of Nigerians, social intervention that will affect the lives of Nigerians directly, and not just big projects like they always say.
All right, Joshua, can you hear me?
Yeah, clearly, I can hear you clearly.
All right, now you also mentioned, mixed reactions to the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Can you give us more context on the criticisms, and what the government's defense has been?
Well, that particular project has stirred up a riveting conversation among several quarters, even including the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who described the 15 trillion naira road project as a wasteful and corrupt project. Now, he is not the only one sounding that kind of opinion. Nigerians also are seeing that particular project is not sustainable on the long run, because we all know that government is continuous. And if you should start such projects, how possible and plausible do you deem it fit to be completed within your 4 years of administration? As we all know that President Bola Tinubu is in his second year, that is the midterm. Now, if you should start such a project, will it be sustainable? Now, the government are saying that it has socio-economic benefit attached to it, that it's going to link several parts of the country. But on the long run, there are other projects that the government needs to focus its attention to. Aside building roads, you should focus on social intervention that will affect the people directly, not just building roads. You are building roads, what vehicle are they going to use to fly those roads? That's another question. It also points to the fact that government needs to bring forth social amenities that will affect the people directly.
Absolutely, Joshua. Now let's come back to you, Mr. Soweto. How would you want the president to handle the remaining 2 years of his first term? What should he focus on?
Well, that's a very difficult question for me to answer, because we all know that governance ends at the second year of any government, and the next 2 years they use it for politicking, for the next election. So that it's not very clear to me whether any advice will be of any use to these people in power. But then just for, to give a benefit of doubt, I think that what we have to say is that first and foremost, the government have to recognize that its economic policies, over the past 2 years, they have failed. Those neoliberal IMF urban policies of subsidy removal, as well as, the privatization of the key sectors of the economy, they have not worked. They have only led to more crises. Those policies need to be reversed as a starting point of a new arrangement to then begin to ensure that the country's economy is organized in such a way as to make life better for all. Development is not just about building bridges and roads. Development is about both infrastructure as well as human capital. Where the human capital aspect, is ignored and you are just building roads and bridges, such a society would never function. What we need is an harmonious development based on utilizing the wealth of the country. And that's only possible when these neoliberal capitalist policies are done away with.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Soweto, for your time, and also Joshua for joining us and giving us that update.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
With that, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, the news continues. Stay with us. Thank you for staying. Now, away from that, the House of Representatives Constitution Review Committee is set to meet with the Nigerian Governors Forum on 23rd of July 2025 as part of its efforts to build consensus and secure support for key constitutional amendment bills currently under consideration. The committee will also hold a joint retreat with the speakers of the 36 state houses of assembly and members of the Senate Constitution Review Committee. The goal is to align positions and ensure uniformity in the proposed amendments across the country. In a bid to promote public awareness and transparency, the committee will engage media stakeholders, including the Nigerian Guild of Editors, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and the Nigerian Broadcasters Association, as well as civil society organizations. These engagements aim to stimulate national dialogue and enhance public understanding of the constitutional review process. All consultations are geared towards ensuring that the priority bills are passed by December 2025. Moving on now, Governor Monday Okpebholo of Edo State has today taken to the streets to celebrate his appeal court victory, affirming his election mandate. Now, the judgment delivered in Abuja saw a 3-member panel of justices dismiss the petition filed by Asue Ighodalo, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party in September 21st, 2024 governorship election. The appellate court upheld the earlier decision of the election tribunal, which had ruled in favor of Governor Okpebholo. Let's move to Abia State, where residents appear unwilling to comply with the sit-at-home directive issued by non-state actors, citing its diverse effects on their daily lives and livelihoods. Many are now calling for an end to the order, which they say causes more harm than good. News Central's Chinwe Ogele spoke with some of them in the state capital, Umuahia.
It's not necessary. People have a lot of responsibilities that sit at home will not solve. You see, there are some people that depend on daily income, and when you restrict them with sit at home, you're not doing them any good. These are still your people, and the issue is that some people are scared because of what the kind of repercussion or what will I say punishment that comes from not observing such a order, and the order is not even coming from the government. It's coming from some individuals, and
no, it affects everybody. Everywhere is dry, so we are observing it. There is no passengers on the road. Everybody is sitting at home.
As a tricycle operator, the thing is not moving as it normally used to be. Everywhere is just very somehow shadow. We are seeing it as in fact, we will not meet to our expectation today as I'm seeing it this morning.
Well, we're now joined by News Central's Chinwe Ogele from Abia State to tell us more about this sit-at-home order. Chinwe, thank you for joining us. What more do you have for us on this situation?
Thank you very much for having me. We have those actually activities that we bring to people are coming out and the event are now, playing the group but then people are taking extra precautions just to make sure that nothing is taken for granted. Then there are security operators.
All right, Chinwe would have to reconnect with you later because we can barely hear you. Now let's move to health matters, where the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says Lassa fever and meningitis have claimed 366 lives across 24 states so far this year. Between January and May, Lassa fever was responsible for 141 deaths from 733 confirmed cases, with Ondo, Bauchi, and Edo states worst affected. Most of the victims were between the ages of 21 and 30. The NCDC says it has activated national emergency operation centers to tackle both outbreaks in collaboration with state and federal partners. While Lassa fever cases are reportedly on the decline, health officials are urging continued vigilance, warning that both diseases remain significant public health threats. Now let's talk security matters. As Nigeria continues to grapple with rising insecurity and worsening economic hardship, a new survey by NOI polls is shedding light on the deepening fears among citizens and the growing distrust in formal security institutions. Now, News Central's Idong Joseph has more.
In Nigeria, the fear of abduction is no longer a distant concern. It's fast becoming a lived reality for many, with new data to back it up. 19%. Fresh findings by NOI polls point to the troubling trend. Crime and insecurity, second only to economic hardship, now rank among the most pressing concerns for Nigerians.
Our key findings. Crime and security at 31% is the second most important problem that Nigerians want the government to address. More than two-thirds, 69% of Nigerians say their country is not very safe, not at all safe compared to 5 years ago. More than 6 in 10 citizens, 63% says they felt unsafe at home or in their neighborhood at least once during the year leading to the survey.
Even more disturbing is the erosion of trust in formal security agencies. According to the survey, more citizens say they now trust traditional rulers over police or military institutions when it comes to reporting threats or incidents.
Increasingly, we can see in this country that people's loyalty to the state and to state institutions are completely gone. They are shifting this loyalty either to their ethnic groups, either to their traditional rulers. I think this is really something that the government should be aware.
Experts and civil society actors are urging the governments to prioritize people-centered reforms, especially in community policing and intelligence gathering. Many hope that these data will serve as a catalyst for meaningful reform.
Think of how we can package this, well, not package, as in how we can relay this information to policymakers so that we are certain that what Nigerians think is really taken into account when we do make our policies.
We are able to speak to government officials and those in authority to see dealing with insecurity concerns as equivalent to gaining political points for staying in office.
As millions of Nigerians continue to live under the shadow of fear, addressing insecurity and easing economic burden remain urgent tasks for the government at all levels. In Abuja for News Central, Idong Joseph.
The news returns after the break. Thank you for staying with us. Now we have been able to reconnect with our correspondent in Abia State, Chinwe Ugele, to give us an update on the sit-at-home order and how the citizens have said they are tired and some have actually stopped complying to the sit-at-home order by non-state actors. Chinwe, thank you for joining us. Please go ahead with what you were saying earlier.
Okay, it's just like any other state at home all the days in the southeast where the people are forced to stay home because of the order by the non-state actors. And today in Umuahia, lots of people are staying back home. The banks are closed. I'm standing on a road known as West African Road, where you have most of the banks in the city of Umuahia located, and none is operating. But no bank is open to any customer today. And then the public offices, of course, some of the government offices behind me by my left is Ministry of Finance. The gate to that office is closed. So you have technical services from private citizens in the town. And then you also have the patrol team of the various security outfits moving around the various locations in Umuahia just to ensure that there is no down of law and order.
All right, we seem to have lost Chinwe there as well, but thank you so much for joining us. Now, still on security, and in the meantime, troops of Operation Hatinkai have neutralized 60 insurgents in a fierce overnight battle in the Bita area of Borno State. The Nigerian Army confirmed the operation in a statement on Friday, describing it as decisive and well-coordinated. The clash began at approximately 1:09 a.m. when insurgents launched an attack on troops of the 26th Task Force Brigade. In response, combined ground and air forces launched a counter-assault that overwhelmed and eliminated the terrorists. In a related development, the Nigerian Air Force announced a significant breakthrough in the fight against Boko Haram. According to NAV spokesperson Air Commodore Ehime Ojodame, multiple insurgents were taken out during the operation, though no specific figures were provided. Meanwhile, in Borno, the Civilian Joint Task Force have reaffirmed its commitment to maintaining peace and security in the volatile Lake Chad area. Undeterred by the recent loss of lives of some of the personnel, spokesperson for the civilian JTF, Bello Dambata, emphasized that the sacrifice will not weaken the resolve to support the Nigerian military in the war against insurgency. News Central's Umar Kirawa has details.
The rough and dusty terrain to Marte local government area in the Lake Chad, a community recently displaced and resettled after a tough battle. An incident of explosion caused by landmine left 9 members of the civilian JTF dead while returning to Maiduguri from Marte. This has caused grief among families who gathered to bury their fallen relatives with full honors.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Gaskiya Allah ya ji gansu, Allah ya sa sun huta. Don dukkan mai rai mamaci ne, muwa muna jira. In ta mu ta zo, Allah ya sa mu cika da imani.
Allahu Akbar! Families of the deceased held burial ceremonies in Maiduguri, mourning their loved ones who gave their lives in the service of peace.
Wanda suka rasu Allah ya ji kansu. Yanzu muna kokarin idan aka yi sadakan uku, za mu sake shirya, za mu sake koma. Dama haka aikin yake, wasu za mu rasa wasu za su taso. Ba ma gajiya da irin wannan. Dama ko mu mutu ko mu rayu ne.
At 2014, you know, the madness is a madness, serious madness. But for now, those people, they are trying to come back with their own madness. But inshallah, we are not going to allow them to do it.
The burials were marked by prayers and calls for resilience among residents to support the efforts to end violence in the troubled region.
There is nothing going to stop us. This thing, it will give us a good morale to wake up and start fighting against these mad elements. So inshallah Rabbi, the CJTF will carry a lot of activities more and more than before to protect our people, to protect our dear state, to protect our Nigeria, inshallah.
Time is what many wait to see, the end of the over a decade act of terrorism in the region that has led to the death of millions and displacement. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Now in North Africa and away from Nigeria, army sources and eyewitnesses say Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces shared El Obeid on Friday, striking 2 hospitals and residential areas. The social insurance and army hospitals were hit during the bombardment of this key southern city 400 kilometers from Khartoum. El Obeid, recently liberated from a 2-year RSF siege, is critical for the army's supply route to El Fasher, the last government-held city in Darfur. The RSF claims to have retaken Al Kouei, 100 kilometers west of El Obeid. In southern Africa, Zimbabwe journalist Blessed Mlanga, who was jailed and charged with transmitting data messages that incite violence or damage to property, has poured his heart out, sharing his journey from his arrest to missing 2 crucial exams while incarcerated. Mlanga was granted bail on May 6 after spending more than 2 months in pre-trial detention. The IPI Global Network has called on Zimbabwean authorities to drop all charges against the media house Heart and Soul and its journalist, Blessed, who faces up to 5 years imprisonment over the publication of an interview he conducted with a politician. Now joining us to discuss more on this is the man himself, Blessed Mlanga, a senior journalist for Zimbabwean online television station HSTV. He joins us from Harare. Thank you so much for joining us on the news, Blessed.
Thank you for having me.
We've been following your story, and you've obviously been through a lot. Can you take us through your experience during your time in jail? Were there any particular challenges or moments that stood out for you?
So basically, prisons in Zimbabwe do not provide adequate food for their prisoners. They also do not provide adequate blankets and clothing for the prisoners. In fact, the conditions in the prison cells in Harare Remand Prison are very rough and painful for prisoners. So this was one thing that I had to navigate from prison. And one thing is that prison in Zimbabwe, being in prison in Zimbabwe is very, very expensive, because you have to have your family bring you food every single day, twice a day. You have to have your family bring you clothing, provide clothing and everything that you need within the prison. And getting it inside that prison is very difficult as well. There's a lot of favors that you have to ask from prison guards, and this costs you money. So this was a very expensive moment for me and my family, but it was made better because a number of Zimbabweans individually and collectively donated, towards my upkeep. So, and there's also no respect for human rights within those prisons. Prisoners just beat up. Prisoners are just beaten up by prison guards for no apparent reason. I observed this, and it was just a very difficult moment for me in my life.
I can imagine. So sorry you had to go through all of that. But how has this experience affected your perspective on press freedom and the safety of journalists in Zimbabwe?
So there's a bit of some press freedom in Zimbabwe. The problem with press freedom in Zimbabwe is that you can enjoy it as long as you do not threaten those in power through exposure of corruption, or even giving dissenting voices a platform to be able to be heard by other people. So if you report on sports and all the other things, you can enjoy relatively press freedom in Zimbabwe. But the threat is there, that if you are going to give those we don't agree with a voice to speak, you will be punished. And I think that was the message that was being sent, because if you look at it, I was arrested for a crime, not an interview. I was not arrested over an interview. I was arrested over a press conference that was addressed by war veterans. I was not there at the press conference. I did not speak in that video. I was just arrested because HSTV transmitted that video. So it just basically tells you that even if they have no evidence whatsoever, they can arrest you, they can detain you and keep you in prison for 73 good days, and not take you for trial. Up to now, our trial is not started. Yet they were denying me bail consistently, telling me that they were ready for trial.
Wow. Well, this is actually quite sad. The fact that, you were only responsible for facilitating the interview, yet you were arrested. And talking about, your them not granting you bail and your trial has not even started. What more can you tell us about, your case currently and what you hope would actually happen in this situation that you're in right now?
So my hope and my prayer is that trial kicks off and I'll be able to clear my name and be able to head before a court that will be fair, that I will be able to get a fair trial is guaranteed by the Constitution of Zimbabwe. I also hope that this thing happens faster, because I have reporting conditions that have been put as part of my bail conditions. So every Friday I have to go to the police station and report that I'm still there. I've not run away. They've also taken my passport, which means that I cannot travel out of the country. And this means effectively I can't work to feed my family, because sometimes, you have to travel out for duty, and this gives you access to other opportunities as you travel, and I can't do that at the moment. So it is quite sad for me that I have to endure this long period waiting for a trial and not knowing what is going to happen at that trial, not knowing what is going to be the verdict. So every single day in my mind and around my family, we are worried about this, and we are hopeful that it should be done fast. And as I see it from the facts that have been put before, I am acquitted, and so that I am allowed to go on with my life.
Absolutely, Blessed. We definitely hope that you get what is fair. Thank you so much for taking time and for speaking to us on your experience.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to your viewers.
It's a pleasure. U.S. President Trump calls tariff ruling political horrible. Details after the break. Join us again. In other news from around the world, U.S. President Donald Trump blasted a court of international trade ruling that blocked most of his tariffs, calling the decision horrible and demanding the Supreme Court to reverse it quickly and decisively. In a fiery post on his Truth Social platform, Trump claimed that backroom hustlers must not be allowed to destroy America. The court ruling, which challenged tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, was temporarily stayed following a government appeal. Trump's controversial trade policies, particularly targeting steel and aluminium, have long drawn legal scrutiny. The Supreme Court may now be asked to weigh in on executive power over trade. In the world of sports, the federal government of Nigeria has inaugurated a joint committee to transform school sports into a structured national talent pipeline. Formed by the National Sports Commission and the Federal Ministry of Education, the committee aims to integrate academics with grassroots sports. Our key objectives include creating sports centers of excellence across Nigeria's 6 zones and strengthening collegiate games like Nuga and Principal's Cup. Co-chaired by NSC Chairman Shehu Dikko and Education Minister Tunji Alausa, the committee includes government officials and private sector experts. The initiative underscores the government's plan to produce well-rounded student athletes and enhance Nigeria's global competitiveness in sports and education. The NSC will serve as the committee's operational secretariat. Well, that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. Nigerians divided over President Tinubu's performance after 2 years. We also told you that troops of Operation Hatinkai have neutralized 60 insurgents in Borno State. Finally, you heard that rapid support forces have shelled El Obeid strike hospitals in Sudan. Remember, you may send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.